Good evening, students. Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Basically, today we'll start with elasticity of demand. That is in page number 27. Before discussing elasticity of demand, we'll discuss, which is in page number 26, that is change in demand and change in quantity demand. Okay, change in demand and change in quantity demand. So everybody take out your copy. Change in demand and change in quantity demand. Okay, change in demand and change in quantity demand. So change in demand means basically we are talking about when there is a change in demand. It may be like demand is increasing or maybe demand is decreasing due to various factors. So that is a change in demand and change in quantity demand. So here we have the first one. We will discuss about extension in demand. Okay, we'll discuss about first extension in demand. Extension in demand. Right? So extension in demand means here when demand, okay, what is extension in demand? That means demand is increasing. Okay, so when demand is increasing due to its own price, okay, so when demand is increasing due to its own price, that is called extension in demand. Okay. So when demand increases due to its own price, when the price of a particular good is decreasing and due to that demand is increasing, that is called extension in demand. So you can see in your study material, if you'll draw, this is your x-axis, this is your y-axis, okay? And suppose this is the price, okay? This is the price, and when this is the price, this is your quantity demand, and this side, x-axis is the quantity demand, and this side in the y-axis, you have price. So when price is this here, P, okay, quantity demand is here, this one, okay? Q, right? Now here, when price will decrease, demand will increase, okay? When price will decrease, demand will increase. You can see here in the diagram, when price is P, okay? When price is P, and this is the point, this is Q, and when price decreases to P1, suppose price become this one, P1, then the demand will increase to here. This is Q1. Fine. Understood? So this is your, so demand curve is when price was P, the quantity demand is Q, so demand curve was like this. Right? So this is your demand curve, DD demand curve. And when price again decreases to P1, quantity demanded has, yes, here demand has increased. So demand curve will go this side, this one. Right? It is sloping downwards. Am I clear to you? It is sloping downwards. So here you can see when all the other things remain constant. So other things means what? We are talking about other factors. We are talking about other factors like prices of the related goods. We are talking about population. We are talking about income of the person. So when other things remain constant, so we are not talking about other factors. We are talking about only price. Okay? So when demand changes because of its price, okay, that may be a case of extension in demand or contraction in demand. Now we are talking about extension in demand. So demand is changing, so demand is increasing. Why? Because of its own price. So when own price is decreasing and demand is increasing, that is the case of your extension in demand. Clear? Clear? And other factors remain constant. We are not talking about other factors remain constant. So here again you see, these changes in demand are called extension and contraction in demand. When the price is decreased, the demand is extended. When the price is increased, the demand is contracted. To explain the extension and contraction on demand, a single demand curve is enough. So here in this case, demand curve is going here, sloping downwards, this one. Fine? Understood? Demand curve is going this side. So when price was P, demand was Q. When price is decreased to P1, so demand has increased to Q1. So demand curve is sloping this way, downward sloping. So this is your extension in demand. Have you written this? Written? Okay. Now we'll move on to number 2, that is your contraction in demand. So here, contraction means here, demand is contracted. That means demand is decreasing. Contracted, demand is decreasing. Why? Due to its own price. Okay, so here price is increasing. So when own price is increasing and due to that demand is decreasing, so that is the case of your contraction in demand. Okay, so in the previous diagram we can see here in the x-axis this is your quantity demand, in the y-axis you have your price, and this is 0. Okay, so this is P, this is P, and this is Q. And when price is increasing, suppose this is price P2. Okay, so when price is increasing, so if price is increased, demand will decrease. Okay, so when it was P, demand was here. Okay, demand was here. So demand curve was this one. Okay, now when price has increased, demand curve is going this side. It will be like this. This is going this side. D, D. Understood? How is the demand curve here? It is sloping upwards. That you remember. Fine, sloping upward. It is going towards up, sloping upward. So what is contraction in demand then? Contraction in demand is a situation where demand decreases due to its own price. Okay? Here considering all other factors constant. Okay? Considering all other factors constant, demand decreases due to its own price. So that is your contraction in demand. Right? Clear? So contraction and extension in demand, that is related to its own price. Either it will increase your own price. If it will increase, then demand will decrease. So that is the case of your contraction in demand. Fine? And whenever we are talking about extension in demand, demand will increase. Why? Because price will decrease. Fine? Now, demand curve now you have come to know. It will go, in one case it will go downwards, and in one case it will go upwards. Clear? Clear? Okay. Now we'll move on to next one. Change in quantity demand. So next one is your increase in demand. Okay. So in increase in demand also demand increases. Here in increase in demand also demand increases, but not due to its own price. Not due to its own price, but due to other factors. Okay, so here, what is increase in demand? In increase in demand, demand increases not due to its own price, but due to other factors. Okay, other factors can be anything. If population will increase, demand will increase. If income of the person, if income of the consumer will increase, demand will increase. So we are not talking about its own price. ठीक है, सामान का product और service का price के ऊपर नहीं है. It is because of the other factors. So that's why here demand increases not due to its own price but due to other factors. Fine? Okay. Now you draw the diagram. How the diagram will be? This is your y-axis. This is your x-axis. This is quantity demand, and this is price. So I think you have written about the slope of the demand curve in contraction in extension. You have written upward and downward. Okay. So increase in demand you can see here with the price remaining constant. So here the price remain constant. If there is a change in other determinants that leads to a change in demand, then these changes in demand are called increase or decrease of demand. Refer to page number 26 in your study material. To explain the increase and decrease of demand, single demand curve is not enough. So here, single demand curve will not explain. It means new demand curve are formed. In case of extension and contraction, single demand curve is enough. That particular single demand curve is like, it is like in the same demand curve. Either it is going upward or it is going downward. But in case of increase in demand and decrease in demand, either it will shift towards right or shift towards left. Am I clear to you? Okay. So here you can see okay. This is P and this is Q. Okay? So price is same here. Price is same, but here when price is P, this is the one demand curve. At here, at this point, demand curve is DD. So when the price is constant, but due to other factors, when demand will increase. So here demand curve will shift towards, where it is shift? It is shift towards? Yes, this is right. This is my right hand, right? It is shifted towards right. This is D1. D1. Fine. So price, here price is constant. Okay, price is constant, but due to other factors, demand is increasing. So here demand curve has shifted towards right. That you remember. Okay, so what is increase in demand? Increase in demand is a situation, okay, where demand increases. Okay, that means change in quantity demand. So demand increases not due to its own price, but due to other factors, demand increases. Okay, so in that case, the demand curve will shift towards right. Fine? So price is the same, the demand curve is shifted towards right. So that is most important. You remember that. Understood? Understood or not? Okay. Now next one, number 4 is decrease in demand. Okay, so in decrease in demand, demand decreases. Okay, demand decreases not due to its own price, but due to other factors. So that means prices remain constant. Own prices remain constant. So that's why it says demand decreases not due to its own price but due to other factors. Okay? So here again you see the demand curve here. This is x-axis, y-axis. So this side is your price, this side is your quantity demand. So this is the price, At this price, the earlier demand is, suppose, Q. Okay? So your demand curve is this one, D and D, right? So price is constant, but here, when demand will decrease means it will go this side. So suppose this here, demand has decreased to this one, Q1, okay? So it will be here. Understood? So demand curve will be this one. D1, D1. So demand curve is shifting towards leftward. Okay, so in decrease in demand, the demand curve shifted towards right. So that's all. Understood? So have you all understood? Aparna, Santosh, Anjali, Radhika?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Fine, so page number 26 is done. Now we'll move on to page number 27. So that is the topic, elasticity of demand. So now we will start with elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand. So elasticity means what? Flexibility, right? Elasticity means flexibility. Suppose this is your, you can say rubber band. Okay, when you will stress, it will go this much. When you leave, again, this will come here. So that is elasticity. So that way, when demand will, if you'll stress something, suppose whenever we talk about price, okay, so due to price, demand will may increase or may decrease. So that is your elasticity of demand. So responsiveness, we can say. So whenever there is a changes in price, and accordingly, the demand will respond to it. That is your elasticity of demand. Okay, so according to the price, suppose one of the factor is your price. So due to price, if demand will either increase or it will decrease, that is called elasticity of demand. Okay, so responsiveness of demand due to many other factors, or we can say one factor, that is price. So whenever there is a change in any of the factors, and due to that demand increases or decreases, that is called elasticity of demand. And price elasticity of demand means what? When, if there is a small change or maybe a bigger change in price, and due to that there is an increase or maybe decrease in price, that is called elasticity of demand. Fine? Clear? So responsiveness of demand due to various factors, including price, that is called your elasticity of demand. Okay. So here, elasticity means sensitiveness or responsiveness. Fine? Responsiveness. Here we can see, we will be discussing today about price elasticity of demand. Fine? So in price elasticity of demand, we will be discussing about various degrees, okay? Various degrees of elasticity of demand. So the first one you can see here, various degrees, like you can see the study material, page number 27, perfectly elastic demand, okay? Perfectly elastic demand, where EP is equal to your infinite. Perfectly inelastic demand, where EP is equal to 0, and relatively elastic demand, where EP is greater than 1. Then relatively inelastic demand, where EP is less than, that is elasticity, price elasticity of demand we are talking about, less than 1, and unitary elastic demand. So these are the 5 degrees of elasticity of demand. So we will be discussing about now the first one first. That is your perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly elastic demand. Okay, so here the name itself suggesting elastic. आप लोग तो इलास्टिक यूज करते ही हो. इलास्टिक, आपके पास एक इलास्टिक है, आप उसको खींचोगे तो खींचता चला जाएगा, एकदम परफेक्टली खींचता चला जाएगा. मतलब इट्स गुड और बैड? गुड. द इलास्टिक इज गुड, राइट? सो दैट मीन्स यहाँ पे डिमांड बढ़ता ही जाएगा. परफेक्टली डिमांड का इलास्टिक हो रहा है, मतलब डिमांड बढ़ जाएगा. अच्छा है, it's a good one. So that's why the name itself suggesting perfectly elastic demand. So where EP is, here EP is, what is mentioned? EP is, yes, infinite or infinite, we say. So if there is no change in price or a slight or small change in price will lead to a bigger change in demand. ठीक है, प्राइस चेंज ही नहीं हो रहा है या प्राइस थोड़ा सा चेंज हो गया लेकिन उसके वजह से आपका डिमांड बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है. ठीक है, दैट सिचुएशन इज कॉल्ड परफेक्टली इलास्टिक डिमांड. परफेक्ट है, इलास्टिक परफेक्ट है, डिमांड बहुत अच्छे से बढ़ता चला गया. सो दैट इज योर EP इज इक्वल टू इनफाइनाइट. अंडरस्टूड? ठीक है, वो वर्ड में मीनिंग उसी में है. So when the price remain constant, if there is a change in demand, it is said to be perfectly elastic demand. It means that the demand may increase or decrease without change in the price. Here the value of EP is infinity. The demand curve in this case parallel to OX axis. Okay, so demand curve is parallel to OX axis. So you can draw this. How is the demand curve in case of perfectly elastic demand? How is the demand curve in case of perfectly elastic demand? So this is your x-axis, this is your y-axis. Okay, so price is this, price is this. So here, this is earlier demand, next, next. So demand is like, okay, so demand आपका बढ़ता ही जा रहा है. Okay, so demand curve, the demand curve in this case parallel to OX axis. Understood? Now next one, number 2. What is number 2 here? Perfectly inelastic demand. Perfectly inelastic, that is opposite to it. Perfectly inelastic demand. So inelastic matlab kya? Opposite to elastic, that is no change. Okay, that is no change. That's why it is EP is equal to, yes, EP is equal to 0. Okay, so demand का कोई change ही नहीं है due to changes in the price or other factors. So here you can see here, with the change in price, if there is no change in the demand, it is said to be perfectly inelastic demand. It means that the price may increase or decrease, but demand will remain constant. So here EP is equal to 0. So here demand curve is parallel to OY axis. So demand curve will be parallel to OY axis. So this is your O, this is your, so demand curve will be this. It is parallel to OY axis. Fine? So this is your perfectly inelastic demand. EP is equal to 0. Done? Okay. Now next one. Yes, example is given here. It holds for goods like salt, life-saving drug. Okay. Now next one is relatively elastic demand. Relatively elastic demand. If the proportionate change in demand is more than the proportionate change in price. Relatively elastic demand. So EP is greater than 1. EP is greater than 1. So suppose your demand here, suppose change in price is suppose 10%. Okay. So change in price is your, change in price is 10%, but, okay. So change in quantity demand is suppose 30%. Right. So proportionately, like demand has increased more. right? So there is a change in price, but proportionately change in demand is more. Fine? So that is the case of your relatively elastic demand. So here you can see again, you can see it is said to be relatively elastic demand. It means a little change in the price leads to more change in demand. Little change in the price. So change in the price is suppose 10%, but it has increased to more change in demand. So here EP is greater than 1. So you can see here how is the slope of demand curve. Here EP is greater than one of the demand curve in case of slopes downward from left to right. It slopes downward from left to right. Now next one is relatively inelastic demand. Relatively inelastic demand. Now number 4. Relatively inelastic डिमांड. जो प्रोपोर्शन से प्राइस कम हो गया वो प्रोपोर्शन से डिमांड नहीं बढ़ा. ठीक है? So proportionate change in prices may be more, but the proportionate change in demand is less. So in this case, EP is, yes, in this case, EP is less than 1. So here you see, how is the demand curve? Here, steeper. The demand curve, you can see the demand curve in this case slopes downward from left to right, but it is steeper. S-T-E-E-P-E-R. You can underline that. That is in page number 29. Steeper. Fine? Yeah. This one. Now number 5, unitary elastic demand. Unitary elastic demand. Unitary elastic demand. So proportionate change in price is equal to proportionate change in demand. So here EP is equal to 1. That is your unitary elastic demand. So if the proportionate change in the demand is equal to the proportionate change in its price, it is said to be unitary elastic demand. So here demand curve slopes downward from left, but it is rectangular hyperbola. You see the demand curve, how it is. It is your rectangular hyperbola. You underline that. Okay, so here in unitary elastic demand, the demand curve is like rectangular hyperbola. Fine? Underline that. Done? Understood? Any doubt? Okay. Now we'll see the formula, how to calculate EP. So you write down the formula here. Elasticity of price, how do we calculate? Proportionate change in demand divided by proportionate change in income, or we can say price. Percentage, or we can say percentage change in demand by percentage change in price. So we can write this as EP equal to change in quantity divided by change in price into P by Q. write down this formula. Okay, so in page number 72, there is a question. Okay, in page number 72, there is a question number 14. Can you see the question related to elasticity of demand? You find out what are the things are given. If the price of burger rises from rupees 12 per piece to rupees 20 per piece. Okay. So here, what is given? P is given. P is given. Okay, if the price of a burger rises from 12 per piece to 20 per piece. So P is 12 and P1 is 20, right? So initial price is 12 and new price, that is P1, is 20. Okay, and the next part of the question, it's mentioned as a result of which the daily sales decrease from 300 to 200 per day. So daily sales decrease from 300 to 200 pieces per day. So demand. So Q is given and Q1 is given. So when price was 12, your demand is 300. And when price has increased to 20, your demand has decreased to? Decreased to 200. Yes, 200. Fine. Then here, what is the change in price? What is the change in price? 8. So change in price is 8. Right? So it was 12. Now it has become 20. So change in price is 8. And here, change in quantity is? Yes, change in quantity is 100. So we are required to calculate what? EP. So what is the formula? Yes, change in P into P by Q. So here, put it. So change in Q is 100 by 8 into P is 12 by 300. 12 by 300. So this is 3. So we are getting 1 by 2. 1 by 2 means 0.5. So what is the correct option here? Option A. Okay, so this way, when questions are given, you are required to calculate it. So this is the formula. Understood or not? Okay. Okay, so today I'll explain you, like 15 minutes are left, so I'll explain you a few topics from page number 54, that is your cost of production. Okay, page number 54, cost of production. Fine? So cost of production refers to the total costs incurred by a business to produce a specific quantity of a product or offer a service. Production costs may include labor, raw material, or consumable supplies. In economics, cost of production is defined as the expenditures incurred to obtain the factors of production such as land, labor, and capital that are needed in the production process of a product. Okay, so cost of production means here we are talking about the expenditure, the total expenditure. Okay, cost of production means the total expenditure which is incurred to produce a particular good or service. Okay, cost of production means the total cost, that means the total expenditure or the total expenses which are incurred to produce a particular good or service. That is given in your first paragraph in the chapter. Fine? So here what are the expenditure? Expenditure is like if you are buying a piece of land, okay, then if you are buying raw material, you are paying to the labor, right? Then you are taking loan and for that you are paying interest and all, right? So to get land, labor, and capital, so whatever the expenses required to produce a particular product, so that is called your cost of production, land, labor, capital, fine. So that is your cost of production all about. So here, what are the various costs, so that we will be discussing in this chapter. So here you can see the types of cost. The first one, you can see real cost. Real cost. Number one, type of cost, the first one we will discuss about real cost. So you refer to your study material and underline. So what is real cost here all about? The concept of real cost was introduced by Alfred Marshall, that you underline, Alfred Marshall. So the concept of real cost is introduced by Alfred Marshall. So that is given in your book. Here, all the efforts and sacrifices together will be called as real cost of production. For example, like all the kinds of labor, waiting and sacrifices required for saving the capital. Okay? So here like we can say all this and even the efforts given and the sacrifices made. Okay, not only the monetary, all the effort that the proprietor is giving, okay, the people, they are giving all the sacrifices that they have made So all this together is called your real cost all about. Fine? So this concept is given by, yes. Now we'll now move on to economic cost. So that is related to only money we are talking about, economic cost. So in the real cost, we have everything. We have like efforts, we have sacrifices, the dedication, okay, everything. Not only money, we have all these things, efforts, sacrifices, dedication, okay. So all these things are your real cost. Now we'll move on to economic cost. Total expenses incurred by a firm or producer in producing a commodity are called economic cost. So here we have economic cost, explicit and implicit cost. Explicit and implicit cost. So in economic cost, we have explicit, and another one is implicit cost. Okay? Explicit and implicit. What is explicit here? Actual payments made by a firm for purchasing or hiring resources are called explicit. This cost actual money expenses directly incurred for purchasing the resources. For example, rent to the land, wages to the laborer, expenditure on raw material, interest on borrowed money. And implicit is like, these costs are imputed cost of the factors of production owned by the producer himself, which are generally left out in the calculation expenses of the firm. For example, rent for the use of own land, interest of its own capital. That is your implicit. Okay, so implicit first I'll discuss about implicit. Okay, so here Mr. X is the proprietor. Okay, so he is the owner of the business. Fine? If he has its own land, so if in the business, if he is using his own land, and for that there is a rent involved, but it is his own land, and he is using it for business purpose. So that is your implicit cost. So he is providing money into the business, capital. Okay, he is providing its own money in form of capital. Okay, so that is his implicit cost. So if money is given, obviously there has to be like some interest involved. He is given that money is his, and some interest is given, not borrowed from anyone else. So that is your implicit cost. It's his own money, it's its own land, right? And he himself is working. He is the labor. He is working because he is the labor. He is not hired. He is giving his own service to its business. Own service. So he is working day and night. So that is implicit cost. Whereas explicit means you have taken a place, land you are using from others. ठीक है? Mr. Y का आपने land use किया, तो उसके लिए you have to give rent, right? You have borrowed money from bank, suppose. You have borrowed money from bank. You have to pay interest, right? So that is your explicit cost, because you are paying it to someone else. You are paying it to the outsiders, whatever you are using for the business purposes, okay? And that cost, you are paying it to outsiders. And implicit cost is like you are not paying it to outsiders. You are using your own land, you are using your own money, right? And you are giving your own service, right? And here, like, suppose you have hired labor. So you're paying wages. So you're giving it to outsiders. So that is your explicit cost. X चला गया पैसा. Implicit, आपके पास पैसा आया, आपने लिया या नहीं लिया. Okay, so here you can see explicit costs are recorded in the account books, but implicit costs are not recorded. Not recorded. आपको लेना चाहिए था rent, it's not recorded. आपको capital के ऊपर interest लेना चाहिए. You have not recorded. You are giving your own service. Day and night you're working, you're giving your efforts, you're giving dedication, you're giving your time, you're sacrificing. Okay, but it's not recorded. So implicit. the owner himself is giving something to the business. That means he is giving his land, he is giving his own service, he is giving his own money. That is implicit. The money is not going outside. And explicit means the money is going outside. The business firm is paying it to someone else. Rent is given to the landlord. Then wages is given to the laborers. Then interest is given to the bank or any money lenders. So that is your explicit cost. Am I clear to you? Clear? Okay. Now next one, number 3. That is your normal normal profit. Normal profit. So the minimum amount which is required to keep an entrepreneur in the production process is known as normal profit. So economic cost equal to normal profit is what? The minimum amount which is required to keep an entrepreneur in the production process is known as your normal profit. Now we can say economic cost equal to explicit cost plus implicit cost plus normal profit. And number 4 is your opportunity cost that we have already discussed, right? Opportunity cost, right? So the cost which is carrying for what? For next best alternative, which is sacrifice or foregone, right? So the opportunity cost of anything is next best alternative cost, which is foregone. So, next best alternative which is foregone. Okay, so you have 2 options and 1 option you have sacrificed. Okay. So that is your opportunity cost for you. Next best alternative which is foregone. Clear? Okay. So that's all for today. So today you have learned about elasticity of demand. Okay, elasticity of demand and the degrees of elasticity of demand. So we have discussed about how to calculate price elasticity of demand if initial price and the new price and initial quantity and the new quantity demand is given, and how to calculate the price elasticity of demand. So what is the formula for price elasticity of demand? Yes, change in quantity divided by change in price into P by Q. Okay, fine. Okay. Then I have also told you about, after that, cost of production, right? So directly cost of production. So what is cost of production? The expenditure which is incurred to produce a particular product, that is called cost of production. And we have types of cost. One is real cost, another one is economic cost. So real cost is introduced by Alfred Marshall, where we have inclusive of your efforts given, sacrifices made, the dedication, all those, okay? And in economic cost, that is your explicit cost, the cost, that means the amount which is given it to the outsiders. And implicit is like, yes, fine, the proprietor himself, if he is using his own land, he is giving his own service to the business. If he is using his own capital into the business, so that is your implicit cost. And normal profit is like the minimum, we can say, the amount which is required to produce a particular product. So that is your normal profit. So economic cost equal to explicit cost plus implicit plus, yes, normal profit. And opportunity cost is the, yes, fine, understood? Okay, fine. Fine, that's all for today. And you revise whatever been taught. And yes, you also see the slope of demand curve, the shape of demand curve in case of various degrees of elasticity of demand. So hyperbola, rectangular hyperbola, and steeper in which case, okay? And where it's shift towards right, where it shift towards left, where it's downward sloping, upward sloping, you revise this. Fine? Okay, fine. That's all for today. Thank you so much.